Hello and welcome to my channel. So my name's Kit and my channel supports LGBTQ+, gay people, trans people, people with disabilities and people who are neurodivergent or mentally unwell. So today we're going to be talking about the signs of autism and things that are in the DSM-5 but also aren't. So basically, we're going to be discussing all the things I know as an autistic person and have experienced, and also all the things that could correspond to a diagnosis. So if you suspect you have autism but you're really not sure, this is the video for you, because if you relate to all the things I'm saying, then it is very likely that you have autism, and if you line it up with the DSM-5, you'll probably get a diagnosis sooner or later if you apply for the assessment. So we're going to start off with stimming. Stimming is a very big thing. If you don't know what it means to stim, it is a repetitive movement that is soothing. So autistic people will stim to relax, because they're excited and they're overwhelmed in a good way, because they're uncomfortable, or etc. Like, there's lots of different reasons why people stim. My favourite stim is hand flapping or like dancing. Like, I literally have a little dancey dance around the kitchen when I'm cooking, and it's really fun. And also just do a little, whatever. Popular stims include hand flapping, spinning, and there's also something called vocal stimming. So it's where you'll make little noises or sing or just repeating things over and over again. That's also called acolia, I think, where you repeat things. It's where you have a repetitive thing in your head. So it's when you have a song stuck in your head and you can't get rid of it, and it's just in your head, it won't go away, and it keeps repeating and repeating. It's kind of like that, but autistic people remember words or phrases, and literally it will repeat in your head. So with me, I have Steven Universe songs in my head stuck in there. I have all sorts of things that pop up. I repeat things to myself that I've said to people because I'm remembering the conversation, and I'll be imitating what I said in the past just to check I did it right and that I wasn't being socially wrong or awkward, or it's really strange. I don't admit this, but yeah, I do all that stuff. So another thing autistic people will do is stand in the mirror and stare at themselves. So a lot, it's not everybody, but I do. I literally am fascinated with my own reflection, because I tend to almost practice what I'm doing. In The Sims, where you can get the Sims to practice in the mirror their charisma skills and then they improve. It's kind of like that. I'll check if I'm not being normal in the mirror, which normal is a construct, it's what society expects of you, but you know what I mean. I'll be checking if I'm behaving alright, if I'm doing okay socially. I'll look in windows, mirrors, whatever, to check if my body language is right, and it's really weird, but I do that a lot. So if you don't know what a meltdown or a sensory overload is, so a meltdown can be caused by sensory overload, but also by high emotions that you can't quite communicate to others or cope with at the time. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, it can cause this. Trigger warning, for the next few minutes or minute, I'm going to be explaining what a meltdown can look like. So skip a little bit, I'll put a timestamp if you don't want to hear this, but yeah. So meltdowns, one of the best ways to self-regulate, unfortunately for me, is pain. So if I'm having a meltdown, I might pull up my hair, not terribly, but it helps, it's grounding. I occasionally will hit my own leg to calm down because it grounds me, things like that. So also screaming and crying, being anxious and zoning out or disassociating is a big one, how people cope with sensory overload, because the best way to actually cope is to remove yourself from the situation, which is why a lot of autistic people don't like crowds, don't like social events, don't like overwhelming situations, because it can cause a sensory overload and then subsequently a meltdown. So it's not really that fun to be autistic a lot of the time. I mean, when people say it's their superpower, or I mean, I understand being empowered with your autism and seeing the positives, but it's when people aren't autistic and they say I'm a little bit autistic when they're not, or everyone's a little bit autistic. If they were a little bit autistic or autistic at all, they would be diagnosed with it, or they would be able to self-diagnose confidently, and they wouldn't just say things like that, because they'd know that if they don't meet all the DSM-5 criteria or enough of it, then they don't have autism. They're not on the spectrum enough. Like, I know everybody has certain traits which could, and they could relate to autism, but if you're not like high enough on, if you're not on the spectrum, if you don't meet the criteria enough to be on the spectrum, then you're not autistic, okay? So anyway, the next thing is comorbid conditions. So if you don't know what a comorbid condition is, it's something that you have alongside your autism. So a lot of people will develop things like OCD, borderline personality disorder, or emotionally unstable personality disorder. ADHD is something that you can be born with alongside autism, because I don't know, it just goes hand in hand. ADHD and autism is a very common one to have together. Depression and anxiety, because autism is an anxiety disorder caused by social problems, like you struggle socially and it makes you anxious. Also, like things like bipolar, like you can have a lot of things alongside autism and it's very common. Another thing to keep in mind is food avoidance. So if you don't like the peas touching the carrots, or you don't like certain foods or textures or smells, like that is a very autistic experience, because we experience sensory stuff on a higher scale. Like a lot of autistic people, most of us, struggle with sleep, struggle with sensory problems and meltdowns and overloads because of that. So personally, I have to cut the tags out of all my clothing if I can feel it. Like if my socks aren't on quite right, it really pisses me off. Certain smells I just find disgusting, like even like nice smells, like when you go in a bathroom and it's really like smells of lemon and it's just a little bit too strong, like that sort of thing, you know, like anything like that. So also social anxiety. So if you feel like you're behind your peers socially and you keep messing up socially and you're awkward and you seem to have developed those social skills a lot later in life and with a lot of effort, if you're overly literal or blunt, this is a sign of autism. So a lot of autistic people will mask as well, which involves copying others to fit in, pretending to get the joke, general people pleasing, and learning to avoid behaviours that get you shamed or told off. That, you know, like basically your autistic traits, you will pretend to not have them, or like mask to the point where people think that you're neurotypical or don't have autism, or they think that your social skills are better than they are, but it's just because you're trying so freaking hard and somehow you've managed to blend in and not show your traits as much. So it's very detrimental to do this. Like stimming can put years on your life, literally. If you are happy stimming, it reduces stress, and then that can literally increase your lifespan. Now I've seen like I don't know where I read this, but I'm pretty sure I can cite below where the study that said this. Like I'm not entirely sure, but like I'll link a lot of things below. If you look in the description, I'll cite most of what I've said, if all of it, and you can have a little like deep dive into that. Another thing with autism is a lot of people will info dump, which is what I'm doing now. So info dumping is where you have a lot of information about something, which autistic people tend to research a lot, and they'll do a lot of extensive research. We're researchers without even doing degrees in research. Like, we'll deep dive into the internet, we'll look at reliable sources, we'll look at Google Scholar, like research papers, everything, because we are intellectual people usually. This is my experience. I don't know what the high support needs people experience would be, but I know that a lot of autistic people are very intellectual. That does not differ. It's just they might struggle to communicate more their needs, etc. I don't really know enough about this, but anyway, a lot of autistic people will research extensively, which is why if an autistic person tells you they know something, you should bloody well believe them, because they've done a lot of research. Also, having a special interest. So you can have multiple, if many. I have so many. So I'm interested in animals, I'm interested in art history, I'm interested in psychology. All of these things overlap, but also they're just in my head. Like literally, like autism is a very cool thing to have sometimes, because it means that you don't just take people's word for it, you investigate, you're curious. Like literally, I've talked about before the similarities between Mr. Spock and autistic people. So Vulcans are very logical beings, and they don't always understand like sarcasm as much. And I say this, Mr. Spock uses sarcasm quite frequently, but I feel like he's learned that over time through knowing humans. A lot of Vulcans are quite literal. But anyway, enough of my fanboying about Spock. And basically, autistic people can be more literal, they'll take your word for it, and that makes people think we're gullible usually, but really we just don't understand why people would lie to us or take the mick, which is why a lot of autistic people unfortunately get bullied, because socially we stick out like a sore thumb. But anyway, if you're struggling with any of these symptoms and you feel like you should get a diagnosis, you should check out my video. It's actually before I socially transitioned, so it's really funny to watch. My dead name is on there, oh well, and it's about like signs of autism, but it's not as informal as this video. It's a bit more like extensive, it explains a lot of different things. But hopefully it'll help you in understanding like why you should get a diagnosis or why you shouldn't, or etc. It's not even that, like it's you can make that choice. But essentially, in a nutshell, I was saying diagnosis can help in education settings because you'll get the right support, but it also might not help if you're like a lot older and have been through the education system, or like, you know, like are retired, because in the workplace and in like university, like school, whatever, you can get better support, but if you've done all that, then it might not be worth getting a diagnosis because it's expensive, and there's no way that anyone can make any adjustments because you're not like needing them essentially. But if you want a diagnosis anyway, then just go ahead with it, because it can improve your life and your sense of self to know who you are and be proud of it. So anyway, if you're autistic or you believe you might be autistic, please check out my other videos on autism, and I really hope this video helped. So I hope you have a lovely day, and bye bye.